historic comeback for a president who has promised to disrupt Washington even more so than he did during his first term. Trump has moved to withdraw the United States from the Paris Agreement and reverse many of Joe Biden's signature efforts to combat climate change and other pressing environmental problems. Trump has pardoned nearly everyone criminally charged with participating in the January 6, 2021 attack on the US Capitol in a show of solidarity with supporters who stormed the seat of American power in his name. And Trump has said he was thinking of imposing 25% tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico. He said the action could come on the 1st of February. The new US president also signed an executive order to delay enforcing a federal ban of TikTok for at least 75 days, even though the law took effect on Sunday, and it's unclear that such a move could override it. Well, US President Donald Trump has officially withdrawn the US from the Paris climate deal for a second time, marking a significant shift in the country's stance on global climate efforts. This move actually isolates the United States alongside countries like Iran, Libya, and Yemen as the only nations outside the 2015 accord aimed at limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. But Trump, who has long been skeptical of climate change, signed the executive order in front of supporters at Washington's Capital One Arena. But you must note that the United States remains the world's second largest emitter of greenhouse gases, and critics argue that this withdrawal will weaken global climate efforts.
In just a few moments, I'm not only signing the release of the J6 hostages, I'm signing other things that you're going to love. Oh, you're going to be happy reading newspapers tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. So I'm revoking nearly 80 destructive, radical executive actions of the previous administration. They'll all be null and void within about, 5 minutes? Is that them over there? 5 minutes? And next, to gain immediate control of the vast federal, out-of-control bureaucracy, I will implement an immediate regulation freeze, which will stop Biden bureaucrats from continuing to regulate. Most of those bureaucrats are being fired. They're gone. For American citizens, January 20th, 2025 is Liberation Day. Today, I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense. First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country.
Well, love him or hate him, one cannot deny it's an astounding political comeback. But Donald Trump has signed a slew of executive orders after taking the oath of office as president, looking to quickly implement his agenda, including declaring a national emergency on the US-Mexico border, as you just heard him declaring, ordering construction on his border wall to resume, and terminating diversity programs in federal agencies, among a bunch of other executive orders he intends to also imply. Chris Casquejo from Voice of America is with us at the moment. Chris, thanks so much again for joining us. Take us through all the day one executive actions Trump has announced and signed so far.
Yeah, you mentioned it. You have the national emergency on immigration at the southern border. You know, he plans to send troops to the southern border to help, and he plans to stop all illegal migration into the United States. That's one. The transgender issue, he wants the U.S. federal government to define gender as simply being male and female, not accounting for any transgender issues or rights, and that should be the official policy of the government. And of course, there's the national energy emergency that he declared when he signed that executive order at Capital One Arena that directs the federal government to drill on federal lands, and also rolls back the EV mandates that were put in place by the Biden administration. These are moves that will definitely not help the climate crisis and the global warming issue, and it may set the world back in terms of trying to mitigate the increasing temperature. So those are just some of the things. He also pardoned the January 6th rioters, the 1,500 of them, making no differentiation whether they were convicted of violent crimes or misdemeanors, just walking in and trespassing. He pardoned all of them, commuted all of their sentences, and stopped the criminal process against the 600 that were still in the system. So there is a lot been going on, but those are some of the highlights of what he's done in his first day of office. Oh, I should also mention the TikTok ban. He also wants to delay implementation of the ban by 75 days, but this sets up an interesting test of the limits of presidential power. Yes. Because the Supreme Court already weighed in and said that the law that Congress passed is legal, and Congress already weighed in, and those are two equal branches of the U.S. government. So we'll have to see how it plays out, whether Trump can supersede the Supreme Court and what Congress has already passed in terms of this law. So, yeah, that's something we'll be watching.
Of course. Also, Chris, Trump has signed an order ending the weaponization of the federal government. Tell us more about this.
Yeah, this is one of the talking points that he had on the campaign trail. He accuses the Justice Department of being weaponized against him in particular, with the the classified documents case, when he was found to have documents at Mar-a-Lago. But that was one of the cases that was delayed for months and years by a Trump-appointed judge, Eileen Cannon. And then also the investigation by the January 6th Select Congressional Committee on Trump's role in inciting the rioters on January 6, 2021, 4 years ago. So he and his supporters believe that the Justice Department politically targeted him as opposed to conducting legitimate criminal investigations for wrongdoing.
Well, Chris, thanks so much, as always, for bringing clarity to the matter and joining us with the latest details. Well, Donald Trump has issued a flurry of executive orders and directives, as Chris Casquejo is also reporting, as he sought to put his stamp on his new administration on matters ranging from energy to criminal pardons and immigration. Trump has pardoned about 1,500 people who stormed the U.S. Capitol back in 2021 on the 6th of January in a sweeping gesture of support to the people who assaulted police as they tried to prevent lawmakers from certifying his 2020 election defeat. Trump signed orders declaring illegal immigration at the U.S.-Mexico border a national emergency, designating criminal cartels as terrorist organizations, and also targeting automatic citizenship for U.S.-born children of immigrants in the country illegally. Basically, at his rally at that sports arena, Trump revoked 78 executive actions of the previous administration. Here are the finer details for you.
The golden age of America begins right now. For American citizens, January 20th, 2025 is Liberation Day.
History made as Donald Trump took the oath of office, officially becoming the 47th President of the United States. With Chief Justice John Roberts administering the oath, Trump placed his hand on the same Bible used by Abraham Lincoln during his swearing-in back in 1861, a striking symbol of both tradition and transformation as the United States turns a new page. Trump's pick for Vice President J.D. Vance was also sworn in, securing his position as the president's right-hand man. And just like he promised, Trump signed a flurry of executive orders right after being sworn in that includes withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement.
In just a few moments, I'm not only signing the release of the J6 hostages, I'm signing other things that you're going to love. Oh, you're going to be happy reading newspapers tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day.
Trump also got his first cabinet member as Marco Rubio was confirmed as the US Secretary of State. In a break from tradition, Trump extended invitations to several world leaders. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, Argentinian President Javier Milei, Chinese Vice President Hang Zheng were in attendance. Front and center was External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, representing India. Former living presidents and first ladies were present at the Capitol Rotunda to witness Trump's return to power. Former First Lady Michelle Obama's absence did not go unnoticed. Her office had announced just last week that she would not be attending the inauguration without offering any explanation. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who had been a fierce critic of Trump throughout his first term, was also absent. The ceremony saw the world's wealthiest individuals sitting together. Tech titans Elon Musk, Sundar Pichai, Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg sat side by side, marking a significant moment as they witnessed Trump's dramatic return to the presidency. The inauguration featured stirring musical performances with Christopher Marquez singing "Oh America," Carrie Underwood performing "America the Beautiful," and Lee Greenwood singing "God Bless the USA." Both Trump and Vance were honored following their inauguration with an indoor inaugural parade at Washington's Capital One Arena. The parade, which normally takes place through the streets of Washington from the US Capitol to the White House, was moved inside due to frigid temperatures. As the United States embarks on a new chapter under Trump's leadership, the eyes of the world are fixed on America. With promises of liberation and change, the question now remains, how will this new era reshape the course of history? Bureau Report, NDTV World.
And for further clarity, we have with us live from Rochester, David K. Johnston. Also with us, immigration expert and CEO of Open Avenues, Danielle Goldman. Thank you so much for making time for us on NDTV. Danielle, I'd like to come to you first. The cancellation of the appointments through this CBP One app immediately after Trump's inauguration, it's actually left thousands of migrants in limbo. What does this sudden policy shift say about the administration's approach to asylum seekers as well as their rights?
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me today. I will say that the new administration's approach aims to send a clear, hardline message right out of the gate. And limiting humanitarian pathways is the immigration priority of the Trump administration at this time. It was made abundantly clear today, and it is leaving hundreds of thousands of individuals without a clear path forward and a lot of unknowns, which is something that people are going to have to start to get very comfortable with in this new world. Unfortunately, we are hoping for a humane treatment of the migrants at the southern border as these actions are taken. But all of this, again, remains unknown and uncertain.
Indeed. In fact, that's a sentiment many are echoing within the United States at the moment as well. David, despite his hardline rhetoric on China, though, during his first term, Trump has actually chosen not to impose new tariffs, at least on his first day. Does this signal a shift in his approach to China, and what does this mean for US-China relations moving forward?
Well, I think Donald is going to use tariffs, which are effectively a sales tax on Americans and which allow domestic manufacturers to raise their prices to just below the price of the tariffed good, to negotiate with the Chinese. He's going to try and get what he thinks will be better trade deals with China. Similarly, the 25% tariffs he's proposed on America's two biggest trading partners, Mexico and Canada, also wouldn't take effect immediately, but any tariffs will raise prices while he's promised he's going to lower prices.
Meanwhile, he's also withdrawn the US from the Paris Agreement for a second time, David. Reports also suggest the US is withdrawing from the World Health Organization. How does this actually place the US as far as the global conversation on both health and climate is concerned? What does it mean for international cooperation as far as these aspects are concerned?
Well, it's interesting that Donald Trump has put himself in the same position on the Paris Climate Accords as Tehran. I don't know who would have ever thought something like that would happen. Donald believes these things are hoaxes, that there is no climate disruption despite all the evidence. The sympathy he may have, he made very clear today when he talked about the billionaires who've lost their homes in the terrible fires in Los Angeles. not the ordinary people who lost their homes, but the billionaires. And I think that's indicative of what you're going to see going forward, that this is going to be a government of, by, and for American oligarchs. And it's going to be based on fictions. I mean, I call this the Trump imaginary universe because many of the statements he made today in his inaugural address have no relationship whatsoever to reality. Donald just makes this stuff up in his head, as I've been documenting now for close to 40 years.
Well, it's the Trump imaginary universe, David, that's got him back into the White House. Many would argue that it's his charisma, and his critics would argue just the opposite. But Daniel, one of the new proposals includes ending automatic citizenship for those born in the United States. What legal and constitutional challenges do you foresee arising from such a drastic move? And how would it actually reshape the current understanding of US citizenship?
There is no doubt that there will be challenges here. The 14th Amendment clearly states that anyone born in the United States is a citizen. This is written in the Constitution. He can try and do this, but the reality is just because a president says that this is the case, it doesn't mean that that is what is going to happen, and the courts are going to challenge this. So this is going to be a long, drawn-out battle, as will many of these orders be as we see these initial executive orders play out and through the next 4 years.
Also, Danielle, the courts will ultimately determine the success or failure of this agenda, right?
They will. They absolutely will. It will be challenged, and we will see this ultimately land in court, and this will play out over time. Right.
David, meanwhile, many warn that Trump's second term could send shockwaves through global democratic norms. How do you think his approach to governance, both at home and abroad, will influence authoritarian regimes as well as democratic movements across the world?
I think this is the biggest concern we should have about the Trump administration. Donald had talked when he was previously president about suspending the Constitution. He has asserted that the second article of the U.S. Constitution gives him the power to do, quote, anything I want. It certainly does not do that, but Donald believes that. So he is going to be a friend not of democratic societies and liberty, but a friend to people like Xi, Kim, especially Putin and MBS in Saudi Arabia. Donald, like millions of Republicans in America, and I take this from Mitt Romney, who was the Republican Party presidential candidate 12 years ago, doesn't really believe in democracy. He believes that he is special and that no one else is qualified to be president. And I frankly will expect that if he's reasonably healthy, that 4 years from now, he will try to stay in office. He has said the worst thing he did was to voluntarily leave office 4 years ago.
Well, David K. Johnston and Daniel Goldman, thank you so much for joining us on NDTV with your views. Let's wait and see how this Trump 2.0 term plays out. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates from the United States. With that, we're slipping into a very short break, but news and updates continue right here on NDTV 24/7. Do stay tuned.
Download any single ID partner app, link your card and earn reward with top brand.
Get it free with single ID.
Mahakumbh, the festival of faith, the world's biggest spiritual festival, the divine dip at the spiritual Sangam, a sacred confluence of faith, culture and heritage. NDTV's mega coverage of the Mega Fest. NDTV at Mahakumbh 2025.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
Hello and welcome to the best of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland.
For 2 decades, NDTV has been a window to the world's greatest thinkers, leaders, Nobel laureates and stars at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland.
From Bill Gates to Shakira to Randy Zuckerberg to top ministers to what is often the biggest story, India, a global economic powerhouse. Conversations around our greatest challenges from AI to wars to sustainability. Join us, NDTV's Vishnu Shom and me, Neeraj Shah, as we engage with the world's finest. NDTV at Davos from January 20th to January 25th.
We are able to maintain the democratic fabric and the democratic system.
I want to do something that can make a difference.
लगातार जनता की आवाज को सरकार तक पहुंचाने का काम मैं करता हूं.
I was a student up until very recently. I really want to work and do something for my people because they have given me this opportunity. They have elected me.
सोचा नहीं था कि राज्यसभा सांसद बनूंगी.
Kind attention, please. Delhi Election Metro 2025 is arriving on People's Platform.
Please mind the gap.
BJP or AAP, who will get to the Delhi Secretariat station?
दरवाजे बाईं तरफ खुलेंगे.
Who will Delhi voters open the victory doors for? And who will be shown the door? Can the BJP throw AAP's victory run off track? Or will it be Kejriwal's ticket to win again? Can Congress take the election metro to revival? We will track it all for you. Delhi's
Well, Gaza has received a major influx of aid and goods, with 915 trucks crossing into the territory on the second day of the ceasefire, the nation has confirmed. According to the Ministry of Telecommunications and Digital Economy, Palestinian telecommunication companies have restarted partial operations of their sites in the Rafah and North Gaza governorates. But what's crucial to note at this stage is that the Palestinian Civil Defense says 137 bodies have been found in Rafah since the start of the ceasefire, 48 hours in. They have found 137 bodies in Rafah. Also, the Palestinian Red Crescent is reporting that 21 Palestinians have been injured during settler attacks in 2 villages in the occupied West Bank. Let's turn our attention now to Colombia. Well, Colombia vowed war against left-wing guerrillas, declaring a state of emergency and deploying thousands of soldiers to contain a wave of violence that has killed more than 100 people and threatens to scupper the country's fragile peace process. In just 5 days, bloodshed has been reported across 3 Colombian departments where fighting has displaced more than 11,000 people. Thank you for investing your time in watching this edition of The World 24/7. As always, we'll keep tracking the latest for you. Do stay tuned.
Hello, Moto.
Motorola Edge 50 Pro, world's first AI-powered pro-grade camera.
have been reporting on all issues, big and small, from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital, Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti is also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
Mahakumbh, the festival of faith, the world's biggest spiritual festival, the divine dip at the spiritual Sangam, a sacred confluence of faith, culture and heritage. NDTV's mega coverage of the Mega Fest. NDTV at Mahakumbh 2025.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
Hello and welcome to the best of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland.
For 2 decades, NDTV has been a window to the world's greatest thinkers, leaders, Nobel laureates and stars at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland.
From Bill Gates to Shakira to Randy Zuckerberg to top ministers to what is often the biggest story, India, a global economic powerhouse. Conversations around our greatest challenges, from AI to wars to sustainability. Join us, NDTV's Vishnu Shom and me, Neeraj Shah, as we engage with the world's finest. NDTV at Davos from January 20th to January 25th.
We are able to maintain the democratic fabric and the democratic system.
I want to do something that can make a difference.
लगातार जनता की आवाज को सरकार तक पहुंचाने का काम मैं करता हूं.
I was a student up until very recently. I really want to work and do something for my people because they have given me this opportunity. They have elected me.
सोचा नहीं था कि राज्यसभा सांसद बनूंगी.